Most people look at their lives and are very often quite dissatisfied with them. So they go seeking some kind of solution. Very often that solution is what we might call spiritual or religious, maybe self-help, something or other. So they take their life as it is, and they say to themselves, this is not adequate, so I'm going to go and get some artificial colourings. The artificial colourings being something that you add. So some religious practice, some spiritual practice, some self-help regime or whatever. And you add those things to your life with the hope that it will make your life better. But in my opinion, there's a whole misunderstanding here. So let's have a look at the basic ingredients without the artificial colouring. So birds can fly. Lions are known for their strength. Horses maybe for their speed. What are human beings known for? Well, for having a thinking mind. Without going into all the mechanisms of that, basically it allows us to live more adequately in life. So not too many people die these days from getting a splinter that goes a little bit septic. 100, 200 years ago, that could well have killed you, the infection spreading into all your body. Not too many people, or not too many women die in childbirth. Most people can afford to keep their house warm enough or cool enough, and so on and so forth. That's all a result of using our thinking head brain. And this head brain can do more actually than just work out how to heat a house or whatever. It can actually start to understand the nature of our lives. The thinking head brain is something that religious and spiritual people don't like. There's an obvious reason why they don't like it, because if you think and understand stuff, you have some power. You only have to ask Galileo in the Middle Ages, who was put in prison by the Roman Catholic Church for saying that the sun didn't go around the earth might go around the sun, and other things he said as well. So religious and spiritual types don't really like the use of reason. Now this is very strange. It's very strange in that we wouldn't deny that birds could fly. They have the wings, they can go do it. We wouldn't stop them. We wouldn't kind of tape their wings up and say, well, this is very bad, you can't do that. Or enfeeble a lion, or tie the legs of a horse together so it can't run. No, we're quite happy for those things to happen. But the thing that distinguishes us, our ability to reason and think, is somehow by religious and spiritual people, particularly from the East, although I'll say something about that in a moment. This ability to think is seen as a bad thing. And so you get talk of things like meditation and mindfulness, and of course the dogma. You should be in a thoughtless awareness. I'm not a novice at this kind of thing. I've done that kind of thing. Where does it lead to? Nowhere. It's boring. To use a word that some may frown on, but it is boring. So, in the Buddhist tradition, for example, not many people know this, but Buddhism was used for population control effectively. So yes, you don't want the masses thinking. So you tell them they can have a mindless awareness, or that they should sit and meditate for so many hours a day, and that any thought that is disturbing or whatever is a bad thing. If a thought's disturbing, it's disturbing for a reason. It's not something to be censored. So the idea that thinking is bad, and this is very prevalent now. You only have to look at people like Eckhart Tolle or Rupert Spira or well, a lot of the Indian and Eastern gurus. They have to offer something as a substitute. And the thing they offer as a substitute is maybe something like you find your true self, or you find nirvana, or you find bliss, or something or other. The practical reality of it is, if you were to interview, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people who have done this kind of thing, and you ask them, oh, did you find enlightenment, or whatever, I think you get 1,000 answers saying no. People talk about it. They might like to pretend that they've found some kind of alternative state, but the reality of it is quite different. And in fact, you'll very often find that so-called spiritual and religious people are more confused and more complex than your average person. So remember that not using your mind, not thinking, has been a tool used in the control of populations. Same in the West. Don't try and figure it out, just have faith in X, Y, or Z. And of course that means that the people who are the power possessors can maintain their power because nobody's going to threaten them. So, there is an alternative to all this religious and spiritual mumbo-jumbo, which probably causes more harm than good. And that is, give what nature has given to you, which is a reflective consciousness. You can form concepts, you can think about them, and you can reach some conclusions about things. So, if you apply that to the world, then maybe you invent a new kind of, well, I don't know, a new kind of iPhone, or so, not iPhone, but a new kind of mobile phone. Big deal. But the really important thing is to understand yourself. Then all the things that are promised by the religious people, you may get anyway, just by understanding yourself. Because what you understand no longer has power over you. So, for example, I'll just give one example. I don't want this to be long. If you understand that our lives are basically a process, like a roller coaster. One day we may be up, and you can guarantee that if one day you're up, the next day you'll be down. It's the way it works. It might not be on a daily basis, but that's basically the process that takes place. Or if something happens in your life that brings you down, then sooner or later something will happen that brings you, back up to some level of pleasure and enjoyment again. It's just the way it works. If you can bear that in mind in your life, this is just a simple example, but if you can bear that in mind in your life, that it's a roller coaster. When you get an increase in survival power, you'll feel good, and when you get a decrease in survival power, you'll feel bad. And your life is just an alternating sequence of good, bad, over whatever time period. If you understand that, you free yourself to some extent from that roller coaster of emotions. Anyway, I didn't want this to be long, but personally, I would suggest that people do not pursue any kind of spiritual or religious tradition that talks about calming the thoughts or getting thoughtless awareness. Thoughts are your most valuable thing if you know how to use them. And that's the key thing, if you know how to use them.